How are you guys doing? Today is Wednesday, April 14th, 2021, out here in this quarantine. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to do an individual profile on Chase Young, the starting defensive end for the team that is currently known as the Washington football team. Today, Chase Young is turning 22. He is one of the best young players in the game. He is coming off a Defensive Rookie of the Year campaign that, of course, validated the reason why this team took him number one overall in the draft. If you're unfamiliar with Chase Young, he is about 6'5", 264. So if you can picture that, he's a very big dude. Incredibly tall, incredibly athletic, great frame. He's very fast. He's very shifty with his hands. He's just a very all-around amazing defensive end. And considering that he's this far in his rookie year, I think it only shows that this man is virtually on track for a golden jacket unless something really tragic happens in his career. Knock on wood. But overall, Chase Young is one of the best and definitely one of the best players that's in football. And he's definitely a player that stood out ever since high school, ever since he's been on the national stage. Of course, he would start out as a five-star football prospect coming out of Maryland. And of course, he would go on to declare to Ohio State after playing at DeMatha, a very famous basketball school. But once he made it to Ohio State, he would end up playing his very first season for Ohio State. In 2017, he would end up playing 9 games in Urban Meyer's last full season, where they would finish with a 12-2 record, and they ended up beating USC in the Cotton Bowl. In that particular season, Chase Young would finish with 11 tackles on the season, but he had 3.5 sacks and a forced fumble in his freshman year. Of course, he was starting to get recognized, but of course, he was almost there. But people were starting to turn their eye to him, and the fact that he was doing this on this Ohio State team as a freshman. If you're familiar with Ohio State, like if you're a freshman and you play for Ohio State, that means you're going to be ridiculously good. But following the season in which they were virtually knocking on the door of becoming one of the best teams, in 2018, which would be a sophomore year, the year that Urban Meyer and Ryan Day made the transition and gave Ryan Day the full-time job, Chase Young would end up playing 13 games in a season where the Ohio State Buckeyes would go on to make the college football playoff, and they would end up they would end up winning they missed the playoff barely, but they would end up beating Washington in the Rose Bowl to finish in the top 3 in the final rating. But Chase Young in this season will go on to finish with 25 total tackles on the season, which is 14 more than he did the previous year. He had 10.5 sacks, which is 7 more than he did the previous year, the first time he was able to log double-digit sacks. And of course, following that season, he would many eyes would be on him for his junior season, where of course many were expecting him to break out as one of the top prospects in this class, and of course he didn't disappoint. But also going into that last season of sophomore year, he did have to go through a thing with the NCAA where his friend helped him pay for his girlfriend to go to the game, and he paid him back after. And he had to admit it the next year, which actually got him suspended, but I digress. In 2019, he would play 12 games. He played 12 games instead of 13 because he got suspended for a game because of taking a loan from his friend, because of how the NCAA's rules work. But in the season, he would finish with 32 tackles, 7 more than the previous season. He finished with 21 tackles for loss, which is almost 7 more than the year before. 16.5 sacks, which is 6 more than the year before. 16.5 sacks in 12 games is ridiculous. And then he also finished with 7 forced fumbles. And this is while playing in the Big Ten, which is of course which isn't made up of scrubs. And of course, that year, Ohio State would make it to the college football championship, and they would end up losing to Clemson in the college football semifinal. Of course, a year where Clemson would end up losing to LSU in the championship, but in Chase Young's final season, and he would establish himself as, of course, the best prospect in his draft class. He was voted the Big Ten Jesse Owens Athlete of the Year. He was first team All Big Ten, a unanimous All-American. He made the Big Ten 2010's All-Decade team. He was given the award for Defensive Player of the Year, Best Defensive Lineman of the Year. Not to mention, not to mention, he was the number 1 overall pick in the 2020 NFL Draft, which is the most recent draft to date. And following his college career, he would get drafted by the Washington Football Team, whose name was initially the Washington Redskins, but as of right now, I guess they're still trying to find a team name. But for his rookie season, he would play for the Washington Football Team. He would end up playing he would start all the 15 games he played in a season where the Washington Football Team finished with a 7-9 record and still made the playoffs, and the first time that the NFL decided to extend its playoffs to 7 teams. They would end up winning the NFC East, which is how they made it in with the 7-9 record. This most recent season, in 15 games, Chase Young would finish with 44 total tackles on the season. He would finish with 10 tackles for losses as well. He would finish with 4 passes defended. He had 4 forced fumbles, 3 fumble recoveries, and a fumble recovery touchdown on the season. And following his first season, the Washington Football Team would go on to, or I guess at the end of the season, he was named the Defensive Rookie of the Year. This is also the year that Alex Smith won the Comeback Player of the Year in Ron Rivera's first year as coach. Even though they wouldn't make it past the playoffs, many people would have Chase Young at least on their radar, as he was also one of 2 rookies alongside Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota Vikings to make the Pro Bowl this year as well. As of right now, he's played 1 NFL season, and he's already a 1-time NFL Pro Bowler, making more Pro Bowlers than a majority of NFL players have ever done in longer careers. The fact that he was able to do so in year 1, I think it shows that he is definitely on a track to greatness. But my whole thing is, I guess for the 2021 year, as the NFL season won't start until September, I am definitely looking forward to seeing Chase Young play. He's one of the most gifted defensive linemen I think I've probably ever seen in college and in the pros. And with that said, I think he's really young. He's a player that I kind of want to watch from the beginning. And because I'm a sports fan, I think it'll be very interesting to see how his career progresses, especially considering how I think he's going to be a Hall of Famer one day. But with that said, I want to thank everyone once again for listening to all 8 minutes of this piece. He's only played 1 NFL season, so there's not much more I can say. Hopefully his play will speak for himself as year by year these profiles will get longer and longer. And I want to wish a happy 22nd birthday to Chase Young. If you ever get a chance to watch him, he's currently wearing number 99 for the Washington Football Team, a team that most recently made the playoffs. And I guess now that they won the NFC East last year, they should be a threat to make the playoffs following this upcoming season. Thanks once again for listening to my piece. Today is Wednesday, April 14th, 2021 out here in this quarantine. And once all of today's matchups are done, I will get back to you tomorrow. Peace out. Thanks for listening to my piece, and peace out. Once again, this is The Elite. Today is Wednesday, April 14th, 2021. I'll catch you tomorrow.